Howdy, my name is Rebecca Hapes, and we're going to talk about the contributions of Ralph Tyler with respect to goals-oriented and objectives-based evaluation model. So Ralph Tyler's work is referenced as the Tylerian Age, and it really takes place between 1930 and 1945. His work took place even after that, but according to the literature that I read, the Tylerian Age it kind of takes place in that time period. He's considered the father of educational evaluation, and he did a tremendous amount of work in educational evaluation, coined the phrase educational evaluation. And one of the landmark studies that he did was an 8-year study and assessed outcomes of programs in 30 high schools with 15 progressive and 15 traditional. And what he did, or one of the many things that he did, was looked at a lot of objectives and really kind of narrowed them down, looking at their behavioral traits, and tried to take those objectives and stating them as behavioral terms. And so looking at those to evaluate instructional effectiveness. And his work did, in fact, form the basis of criteria referenced testing. So he had some basic principles of curriculum and instruction that we're going to go through. There's a lot of text on this slide, and so I'm going to leave this up here for a bit so you can reference it. He did identify or asked instructors to identify the educational objectives of the course. We see this even now on course syllabi that we take as students, and that as instructors or someone designing curricula that you include on a course that you're developing. But essentially, what do instructors expect students to be learning in and from their particular course? So what are those learning objectives? Also looking at defining those objectives in terms of behavior and content, identifying situations where those objectives are utilized. So basically, where can we see the student utilizing what it is that they've learned, and try to assess them in the most natural environment possible, which is the kind of moves on down the line for devising ways to present the situations. So trying to really look at the realistic settings where they can create those environments to provide learning opportunities that are the most realistic as possible. Devising ways to obtain a record. So what's the most appropriate assessment method possible based on the learning objectives that you're hoping to obtain. And then deciding on the terms to use in the appraisal and the appropriate ways to get the representative sample. And then 4 basic questions that Tyler advocated for development of curriculum are: what are the educational objectives that the students are going to be trying to obtain? What learning experiences can be provided that are going to actually help the students get those objectives kind of under their belt? And then how will the learning experiences going to be put together and organized so that as you go through the program or the course, that the accumulation of those different learning experiences are really going to help to achieve those learning objectives? And then how is the effectiveness of that particular program or course going to ultimately be evaluated at the conclusion of the program? And then his general contributions, and this is kind of just some summative information. The ongoing course improvement require the continuous evaluation of student progress toward the realization of educational objectives. So, again, he was very big on educational objectives and the use of that, and toward the continuous evaluation. So we really have that feedback loop process taking place that he advocated. Like I've mentioned, he did begin utilizing the term evaluation in 1930. Prior to that, terms related to that were evaluation and testing rather than evaluation. So he really began the utilization of that term. And then his behavioral category use really laid the groundwork for Bloom and others to develop the taxonomy of educational objectives. So we are in education are really familiar with that as Bloom's taxonomy. So Tyler's work really laid the groundwork for what we in education are really familiar with and utilize quite frequently related to this particular work. The references are laid out here for you, so you can kind of read over these, but I hope this information was useful for you. I certainly found it interesting for me, and I hope you enjoyed this content. Thank you.